let's move on to I believe it is said Asa Newell. Asa Newell. Um, Asa Newell is a little bit older. October 5th, 2005 birthday. He'll turn 20 before the start of his rookie season. His rookie season will be his age 20 season. Um, he was a freshman though, listed at 6'11", 220. I'm calling it now, fellas. He is not 6'11". Are you guys with me on that, or do you guys think that I'm tripping?
It's a classic case of tall hair on measurement day, I like to say. So he's like 6'9", 6'10". There's
He
no way he's 6'11". He looks like
he.
barely taller than Santos Cyril. I'm sorry, Stone. You can go.
You're good. There's times he doesn't look far off. Like he plays. I'd say 6'10". I'd say 6'10" for sure. 6'11" maybe on a good day, but he's not far off. I don't think.
I'm going low. I bet you he's 6'9", like maybe even 6'9" in shoes, 6'10" in shoes probably. And I also don't think he has particularly long arms. So while I do think he is,
Put your glasses on, buddy. Think.
well, I do think he is, 4 or 5 sized. I don't think he's like true center sized. But this season at Georgia as a freshman, he averaged in 29.1 minutes. He averaged 15.4 points on 54.3, 29.2, 74.8 shooting splits, grabbed 6.9 rebounds, less than 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block, 1.1 turnovers. Newell had a 58% effective field goal, 61.2% true shooting. Not crazy numbers, but okay. 14% offensive rebound rate, 13.5 defensive rebound rate, sub 7 assist rate, sub 10 turnover rate, 3.8 block rate, 2% steal rate, 38.4 free throw rate. He dunked 57 times. We'll talk about just why that is so impressive in a little bit, but that's not a great number for like a quote unquote center, but for him in his context, 57 dunks, pretty impressive. Shot 72.9% on close twos, 37.3% on long twos, 74.8 on 135 free throw attempts. Then did take 5.4 3-point attempts for 100 possessions, but only shot 29.2% on them. Before we get into some BART queries, do you guys have any specific thoughts on this stat profile?
Very well rounded. It has its weaknesses, but I think the big thing that we talked about a little bit before the show is that the weaknesses aren't really like prospect ending weaknesses, right? It's kind of devoid of really high highs and really low lows. He's very steady, and I think most of it is good. Like actually translates to the NBA level good, and the bad is like can kind of be explained by scheme, but also just we can talk about the specifics when we get there on the defensive rebounding. But a lot of it's just weird. Like it's just like he still did good provided his team context and what he did this year. So he's still skilled. He still did it. One of the better stat profiles that we've looked at, in my opinion.
I did do a couple BART queries here just for fun. One nice and one not so nice. So this is a really offensive focused one. This is all players who have had a true shooting above 60 have taken more than 4 3-point attempts per 100 possessions, shot above 70% at the rim, and made more than 50 dunks. This list is pretty small. It's Asa Newell. It's Day'Ron Holmes last year before he got drafted. Keegan Murray, Chet Holmgren, Charles Bassey, Obi Toppin, Jakeenan Grant, Martin, no idea how to say that, from Creighton, Krempel, I don't know idea, Tavion Kinsey, my GOAT, Chris Boucher, Anthony Bennett, and then CJ Aiken. So a couple guys who were successful, a couple guys who haven't been, a couple guys who are TBD. But basically, even though he shot not very well from three, I think what's more important is how many he took. He shot well from the free throw line. I think he's going to be a fine shooter. And he was really, really efficient at the rim. And he dunked quite a bit. So this is just one I thought was interesting and worthwhile. I'm going to read the other one, and then you guys can kind of react to both in tandem. this is kind of about his lack of certain areas of production, right? This is kind of the play finisher only archetype, who's also not includes not being defensive playmakers. So his defensive rebound rate below 15, assist rate below 10, block rate below 5, steal rate below 3, 3-point field goal percentage below 30. Names here: Jordan Walsh and Bryce McGowan's. I'm only going to read the ones that were from the year they were drafted. Alondes Williams. Tumani Kamari did this as a freshman, but not before the year he was drafted. And a whole lot of other names that were not the year they were drafted. Kelvin Blevins is one that before the year he was drafted. Jake Layman, Norman Powell, DeMar DeRozan is maybe the most interesting. Lance Thomas, Quincy Acey, Michael Thompson, and that's again. There's some other names in there, but just a whole lot of, and there's a whole lot of guys who did this and then had to go back to school for 1 or 2 more years before they could make it to the league. I think this is a worthwhile one because the holes in the stat profile aren't that anything is missing or awful. It's that all of those numbers are just kind of weird. Like why is a 6'11" guy who's this athletic blocking less than 4 shots? Why is he only grabbing 13.6% of defensive rebounds? Why does he have no, if he's playing with another big, okay, well, he should be roaming around a little bit more and having a higher steal rate than. No, the steal rate isn't awful. I mean, to be fair, I probably should have cut that out. He does have a 2% steal rate is fine for a big guy, and he makes shots and he doesn't pass at all. So it's just kind of a limited one. We talked a little bit about the stats profile. We talked about some interesting names. Let's talk about the offense. He's an offense first prospect. I think we would all agree on that. Coop, as I think you're the resident Asa Newell stan here. Tell me what you thought about Newell's offensive game.
I actually think Stone might be the stan. I actually have no idea. I'm not going to lie. The way we talk, I don't know if we had very many conversations about him this week. Offensively, I think the entire cell, well, there's two. There's two big things here, and it's offensive rebounding. I mean, that offensive rebounding rate, 14.0, pretty monster, made up a huge portion of his offense this season. Putbacks, just getting the ball off the glass. It's kind of a weird projection because a lot of his offensive job was just stand near the basket, like the entire possession, and just be there as a bailout option. And then when the shot goes up, also just stand there and be the bailout option for if the offense goes nowhere. And it worked. I mean, Georgia was like a middle of the road SEC team. I think I should actually know that. They were pretty bad. They beat Florida. They beat Florida.
They were a below average SEC team that had some big wins and then made the tournament and got absolutely pieced by Gonzaga.
Yeah, that game was awful, actually, by the way. He looked completely outclassed by Graham Ike. It was really bad. But offensively, he's got good touch around the basket. I mean, he can finish in a bunch of different ways when he gets there, but he just spends a lot of his time standing around the basket. And then the other part of the sell is that he can probably shoot the ball. He shot the ball all right for a big man as a freshman. He can really shoot from the free throw line. He took a pretty decent amount of 3-point shots. I am going to sound like such a loser right now, but Tankathon has his projected 3-point percentage as 34% in the NBA, which is better than most centers that get called stretch bigs these days. It's not a very accurate number, but it just I like to use it as a baseline sometimes to get an idea of if this is even something. And really, I mean, that's about it. He doesn't pass the ball. He's a really slow processor of the floor. He can kind of make kickouts sometimes, but it's really slow, and his delivery is really bad. He doesn't have an in-between game. He doesn't have a short roll game. there's just like nothing else there. So
he has his little this is new age big man stop and pop floater if he catches in the short roll.
Oh, the Isaiah
That's cool.
Hartenstein special.
Yeah.
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 That's
Shingun has that in his bag too. Like let's not.
It pisses me off. It pisses me off when Shengun does
It's
it.
a bad shot. It's a bad shot. But
it is unless you're like 98th percentile at it. It is a bad shot.
Mm-hmm.
And for Asa Newell, it's a bad shot. Just hit another post move, dude. You can do it. You're athletic enough. Hit the damn post move. You're not using that energy on defense. So just hit the damn post move. Stone, do you have anything to add to the offensive side of the ball?
I think maybe I am the resident Asa Newell stan here. I really buy the shot, fellas. Like I think he is. Of any of the bigs we've talked about so far this year, excluding Flag, if you consider him one, I think I buy Newell as a shooter significantly more than any of them. And not to say I believe in him being like this knockdown sniper, but I think he is very comfortable, looks mechanically really solid. I think the touch is solid. Like I really buy him at a 36-37% type shooter on, significant, like 5 to 7 attempts a game, like significant volume. And I think outcomes exist where he's even better than that, but I think I'm really confident in him at least hitting that mark. And I think that is meaningful value as a shooter, as a big. I also think that he is pretty solid around the rim. Like I think he has versatility with moves. I think that I think he's really crisp. I agree with Cooper. I don't think he's a great processor in terms of reading the court, what he reads on the court, but I do think he is actually very crisp and quick in the decisions that he does make. Not to say they're always the very best, but I do think that the ball doesn't stick with him, I don't think, very often. And I value that for a big, especially. I think also too he's a really weird athlete in terms of he's with the ball in his hands, just lacks so much explosion. Like I think he can attack a closeout okay, but against any sort of resistance around the rim, I think he's going to really struggle. Not because he isn't a versatile finisher, but because he just lacks so much explosion with the ball in his hands as a finisher. Where I think a lot of it's going to have to be him being like spoon fed or being assisted on rather than self created drives around the rim. I also think that, but on the flip side of that, it's really weird because operating out of the dunker spot, like he is very quick off the ground. Like he's a great lob threat coming off the ground, and very quick at seeing when that pass is being thrown for a lob. Like I think that's something that doesn't get talked about too often with a lot of players, but it stood out to me with Newell. So I think he does offer some versatility, and he makes a lot of the simplistic reads out of the short roll, but he does make them. Like he's much more open to making passes as a roller than someone like Maluach that we just talked about. He's not going to make anything complex, and he's certainly not going to play make necessarily, but I think he is someone that is very capable of making very simplistic connective passes. And that's really what he offers, but I think what I just described is valuable to all 30 NBA teams. And I think the ability to finish around the rim as a versatile guy who's not going to handle the ball much, or finish beyond the arc, and me being confident that he'll do both at a pretty accurate level. I think that really intrigues me quite a bit.
Yeah, I think I might have come off as too negative for how I actually feel about Newell. I was mean about he's very simple, right? I think he's just good at the basic big man stuff though, right? Like actually good. His stats profile kind of points to it. He's got pretty good feel for where offensive rebounds are going to like come off the backboard. Sorry, I'm trying to prevent myself from sneezing. Jesus. But he just like does a lot of the big man stuff at a pretty good rate. I mean, despite playing with not the best guards, Silas DeMurray Jr. is a guy, but as a pretty reliant player, I think he was pretty interesting. I think there's a little bit of stuff there with like straight line driving with the handle, just because he is so athletic. That combined with his post moves, I think is like really interesting. There just wasn't very much of it because of the context. And it's kind of limited because there's like no passing, right? There's no advantage creation or like creating for others with the passing. It's still like a tertiary, quaternary option type offensive look, and not like I'm going to come in and create an advantage with this every single time down the floor. Which still I think is enough to like potentially make him offensively a 4. And we'll talk about where he is defensively, but he's athletic enough. There's enough skills there, especially if the shot comes around, to just like be a pretty plain offensive 4 who's just tall and pretty athletic. And that's a value add, even if he is just kind of a play finisher. And I do think that I'd like to see him be more of just a 5, because there's no passing there, but there's some potential for upside there.
Yeah, I feel like I'm being like the comp guy this year, but I think the sell for him is really similar to what the sell for Khalil Ware was offensively. And obviously I missed on Ware a little bit. I was way too low on him for someone who is already, an impactful offensive big man. Even though I still have my defensive questions. Now I'm obviously wary to draw conclusions about a guy after one season in the NBA. A lot of people were trying to tell me things about Jaime Jaquez, and look how that turned out. But I do think that I'm with Stone. I buy Newell as a shooter just fine. Is he going to be anything crazy? No, but he looks confident taking them, and I think he was maybe discouraged at times from taking them at Georgia. But I think the mechanics are fine. He has a bit of a wide base. Sometimes the upper body can be overly disconnected from the lower body for that little 2-motion jumper he got. But this is, again, something I think matters. He got more confident in it as the season went on, I think. And he took more and made more later down the season as competition got better and better, including, having a stretch where, he was 2 of 5 against Oklahoma and 2 of 6 against Florida, 3 of 6 against Auburn, 3 of 4 against Mississippi State. Against good teams, he made shots. So is he going to be a great shooter? No, but I think he can be a competent shooter. The question I have is if he can be like a real pick and pop shooter. He looks more confident, kind of stand still, really step in, take his time, type of guy. And then also, if he gets the gravity to be a real catch and shoot guy or even a pick and pop guy, can he attack those closeouts? I'm not sure on that. I think the first step is okay. He has some handle stuff. He really loves his kill his dribble on a spin, but he's not like great at any of that. I'm with Coop on the passing. It's just not really a skill that exists for him. I wish there was more like kind of grab and go stuff, but at a certain point, he's one of those guys where I think I try not to focus too much on my eye test, because at a certain point he played in awful spacing. They were lots of times playing only 1.5 good shooters, not counting Newell if you want to count him as a good shooter, but he wasn't in college. I mean, just straight up. They were playing one other guy who could shoot, and then Silas DeMurray, when he decided to take shots, could sometimes shoot, but would also just turn down open ones all the time. And he was still crazy productive and efficient. Like, he can finish with both hands. He has good touch, well outside the lane. And he can have little push shots, hook shots. I think he is really physical, despite how skinny he is right now. Listen, Janai Broome and Dylan Cardwell and I'm blanking on them, but other bigger Coop mentioned Graham Ike, other like big strong guys really fucked him up. They ate his lunch on both ends. I'm not gonna lie, but he didn't shy away from that, and I like he's willing to see he's willing to hunt a body and really try and box out. He's willing to try and jump through someone to finish. He's not avoiding contact, and to me that points to some there's going to be some even gains in terms of his physicality at the NBA level as he gets bigger and stronger. Now the age worries me. The fact that again he's so limited, he has to be a play finisher. People have to create stuff for him, and I'm not sure he's going to be even great at using his own gravity to create driving lanes or anything like that. Like, and he's not such a good athlete that he's like a crazy lob threat, right? Like, I just it's so his game is so weird. Like, I'm really struggling to wrap my head around it. So I'm just like, oh, go ahead.
I just want to add really quickly too. His frame is very conducive to adding a lot of muscle and being someone that he already doesn't shy away from the contact, but 2-3 years down the line when he's significantly added muscle, I think there's going to be a lot less guys that are way stronger that can physically impose on him than did currently in college. And a quick engagement farm, if you're not looking on the YouTubes, you can see a picture that shows some of his frame and why I think there's more muscle to be gained and put on there. So lock in on YouTube if you haven't already.
Yeah, you can also watch me react live to Memphis Golden State, and this game is going crazy. But yeah, how valuable can you be as a play finishing four? We'll answer that here at the end. But if you guys don't have anything else,
this is the question: is he a 4 or is he a 5? Because if he's a 4, he's way less interesting. The passing is so negative as a 4. The driving is so non-existent as a 4. He has to be a 5 for me offensively to actually provide the value that I think he can. Now, if he's a 5, I think he's a good offensive 5. I like him less offensively than Maluach, honestly. I don't know if that's a surprise. Even though I think he's a better shooter, I just think Maluach is so much bigger, and his game just, maybe this is short-sighted, just makes more sense to me, and he's younger. But what am I missing here that you guys think maybe he can be a 4?
I think it can be both, and that intrigues me quite a bit because I buy the shooting. Like, I I think the big thing with the shooting is not that I buy him as the sniper, but uh, all the other guys we've talked about previously, it's like, well, maybe he'll be able to shoot 2 or 3 a game. Like, I really buy Asa as someone that could shoot 6, 7 a game, and I think that increase in volume really makes a difference when you're talking about whether he can play the 4 or not. And I think that uh, if he's shooting it with that sort of volume at a decent enough clip, um, that provides a lot of value. And I do think he can straight line drive against certain matchups. And I do think, as a 5, we talked about his finishing near the rim, but I think that level of volume as a shooter really opens a lot of things up where I feel confident, and he feels confident, I think, in probably putting up that many. Whereas a lot of the guys pretty much all the other quote unquote bigs we've talked about prior to him, it's more of a question of can he shoot, and if he does, it's probably going to be at 2 or 3 attempts a game.
my big worry is that, well, okay, I think he could be a 4 in the right scheme. You put him on the Hawks, I think he could be a 4. You put him next to, a NBA nerd word alert, heliocentric creator, I think he could be a cool 4 who just finishes plays.
So you're saying like a PJ Washington type 4?
Yeah, and I think that I mean PJ's better. PJ's like a really good basketball player, but it's like that kind of style, right? I don't think he could be a 4 on probably 60% of teams, but for the 40% where he could be, or the 30% or whatever, maybe he figures it out. I do think that the 5 is the much easier way to add value for him. Stone, you talked about him being, a 30 team player. Like every single team could use an Asa Newell. I think they could all use him as a 5. I think he's a lot more valuable just with what he currently does, without projection, without a lot of development as a 5. And even then, he still needs to put on a lot of muscle and sort out some of the defensive issues, which, if you guys want to hop over to that, unless you have anything else. Okay. He's athletic. He just can't grab rebounds for some fucking reason. That defensive rebounding rate scares the shit out of me, especially for a guy who, I don't want to say he spent all his time in the paint, but he was like in rotation a lot around the rim. Like he's not just like out guarding a bunch of guys in space. He just could not seem to get his hand on the ball. Georgia gave up so many offensive rebounds. They lost so many games because they gave up so many offensive rebounds. And it's because Asa got thrown around and he just could not do it on the defensive boards. And that sucks. Part of that is he's a little younger, but he's not, as young as you'd like him to be for, a freshman. But it's just, I don't know. You're really, with the defense, I think, betting a lot more on fun movement skills. And because, even the stocks numbers aren't there. Obviously, the steals numbers aren't bad. But for the amount of time he was out playing in the field as like a roamer, his stocks numbers are not good, right? For a guy like that. He doesn't block a ton of shots for a guy who is playing the big man spot. Doesn't get a ton of steals for a roamer. Just didn't put up a lot of resistance. I think he could figure it out. I think he added decent value, and he could guard guys that are around his size or slightly smaller. And he has the athletic tools to do that kind of stuff long term. But there's a lot of question marks there for a guy who's also just like very limited on the offensive end.
Yeah, I didn't really love anything about his defensive game. He did some switching that didn't look awful. He's definitely more of a contained switch guy than like a real guard on a switch guy. But he could probably guard fours, fine, fours and some fives. He got bullied by like Janai Broom, but man, did he try. I like some of the toughness stuff with Newell, but I don't think he did anything well. There was nothing for me to latch on to other than, can he be somewhat survivable as a backup 5 who's gonna have to run some kind of gimmicky maybe high catch scheme with hard tags on the backside. He covers ground in a straight line really well. He runs fast. Like he can run the floor forwards and backwards. So that means, there's probably some stuff there with his recovery that he didn't get to show. He's fine in hedge stuff. What is there to be excited about? Stone, am I missing something here?
I think for me, it's not the level of defender he is, because I don't think he's a bad defender. I don't think he's just a very good one either in most circumstances. I think it's just the versatility and the different ways you can utilize him. I feel like he can guard the perimeter a pretty decent amount against guys that are just not super explosive. Like put him against most 3s and 4s. And it might not be his rookie season because, like I said, there's more muscle to be put on, although I'm pretty confident he will put it on. But we're talking a couple years down the line. Like I think he's going to be someone you feel confident guarding the perimeter, but also you can put as like a low man strictly and as a help side rim protector. This is where I somewhat am less open to him being a 5 is defensively, because I am not fully sure that he's built to be a primary rim protector. I think that not to say he's he's not like terrible rotationally, although he has definitely some late timing in terms of the rotations, more than you would like as a primary. I think that he is probably going to get bullied in the post, although, again, if he puts on weight, maybe that's not as much of a concern a couple years down the line. And the leaping is just very weird. Like he's very slow as a second jumper, but his first initial jump is very quick. There's too many questions there for me to really feel comfortable with him being a full-time 5 defensively. But as a 4 against like a lot of forwards, and as a low man, I feel confident in the early on portion of his career, and then as time goes on, I do feel confident that he will be able to guard the perimeter against a lot of guys. Definitely not guards or anything, but against a lot of wings and forwards, like I think he's going to be able to contain guys. He won't be a stopper or anything, but it just adds to the level of ways you can utilize him, and I think that versatility adds a lot of value.
I still think he's quick twitch enough for that. Like I don't think he reacts quick enough. I don't think the first step is good enough. I'm with you that I think he can put on meaningful weight, and then maybe he's just a 5. He's just a real 5. And if that's the case, that's fine. Like if he can bang a little bit down low, and again, I like his toughness, then I think he's fine as a backup center defensively. Like nothing crazy, but he's fine. He can be a I don't know, man. There's so many backup centers. Could he be a better version of Nick Richards? Sure. Like if Nick Richards could make shots, that's a valuable player. If Mason Plumlee could make shots, it's actually Mason Plumlee might be a pretty damn good comp for him, where it's like kind of weird, but just happens to be pretty efficient.
You're not helping my war on comps here. I want all comps to end, and you're making it hard.
I don't know. It's like sell me a little bit. So what's the top end outcome for Newell? Because for me, all I see is a backup big who there's never a world that he closes games for teams.
See, that's somewhat where I struggle is again, like with Maluach, what is the top end outcome? I think for me, and I'm not comping them as players because I would never do such a thing. But in terms of role, like the Al Horford role, the Boston Celtics Al Horford role, like I think that's a damn valuable player that is versatile defensively. He's rotationally crisper than Newell currently is, but I think Newell can get to that level. He's not like a standout rim protector. He can really shoot to a meaningful degree and meaningful volume. I think probably the biggest difference there is the passing, but apart from that, like I think that's still a really versatile and valuable player that can close games. So that's sort of where I'm at with Newell and just the role that he's capable of.
For me, is just Horford's just a genius in a way like I just don't see with Newell. What Newell's special above all else is that he's just pretty tough. He's willing to just kind of fight and scrap, and he'll get some dirty buckets, and he has good touch. And again, I think he's going to make shots. But like Horford's special is that he's crazy tough and crazy smart. And that's just different. Like it's just, maybe a new, is there an argument that it's maybe more in like the Xavier Tillman realm where it's like, hey, like there's nothing special, but he's good enough at all these other things that it ties together. Like
he's a much worse athlete, I feel like.
Tillman is, for sure. Yeah, that's fair. And that's why, again, the name that comes back to me in my head all the time is Montrezl Harrell, as always does. I knew Coop was going to crack a little smile on that one.
Defensive player of the year for half of one season, Montrezl Harrell. So,
no, but where like if that,
we're too far in the comp weeds. We're too far in the comp weeds
for sure. But I'm less talking about in terms of comps than just in terms of role. Like I think that's more what Newell is. Like he's a, if you even want to say Nas Reed, he's not a play type for Nas Reed, but comp in terms of high end comp, he's like a 6 man of the year level big man, where he's a really interesting change of pace. He makes shots enough, and he kind of does some weird, funky things. But I also just like he's not a high flyer in the way of like being a crazy lob catcher. He's not such a good post scorer that he's going to dominate just catching the ball in the block all the time. He's not such a good roll man or short mid range game type guy to just be dominant there. And I just don't think he's very good defensively. Like I think Newell, as much as that stat profile really intrigues me, and I'm trying not to just like fall into the eye test trap that I sometimes do. I just I just don't see it with him, and I can't bring myself to. I'm trying to see your perspective, Stone, and I get it. Like I get where you're coming from, but I don't think there's a world I can have above Maluach. He won't be last on my board so far. Like I prefer him to Jaeger Demon, and he's I'd probably draft him and give him a guaranteed contract just because, man, that production is so good. And while he's old for his class, he's not like ancient. He's not Chris Duarte. Like the production, the efficiency are so good. I think he's going to shoot. Like I'd draft him and give him a full contract, but I don't think I'd be really looking seriously first round most classes. That's where I come down on Newell. I'm sure that's far too low. Coop, I kind of I want Stone to go last year because I'm really interested in his kind of wrap up. Where do you have Newell? What haven't we mentioned that you want to mention about him?
You talk about his funk. I think the real thing that differentiates him from a lot of the thing that I really cannot get with Newell is there's just not like a special skill there, right? You kind of said like the special is just that he's tough and a little funky. He's just not even that funky. He's just a tweener, right? Like he's just kind of a 4, but not really, and kind of a 5, but not really. He's not like got an exceptional level of skill for either of those positions, right? He's not like a great shooter to where he's gonna like actually I don't think he's gonna like add value as like a true stretch big, and he's not a good enough handler to add value as like a 4 or 5 from that big spot. It's just weird. He is tough. He's just tough and skinny and doesn't really understand his leverage great right now. And I don't know. I like him. He's got that Georgia Bulldog in him. So I like him better, obviously, than Demin. I don't know. I might like him more than a guy like Ace Bailey because he actually does produce and he does something that I can like really tangibly see and wrap my head around. And maybe he doesn't have the upside to create or do any of this stuff, but I don't really think Ace is going to do that either. It's just kind of he's so simple in what he actually does, but he's a complicated evaluation in what does his translation look like? What is he going to do? Fun-ish offensive big man who's like slightly special. Is he like offensively Miles Turner and then defensively someone completely different? Where like Miles Turner is cool in theory, he's what if man.
You know what it is? You know what it is? The offensive upside is Jaren Jackson Jr. He doesn't have that level of handle, but he kind of has that level of like weird, smooth biomechanics that maybe could develop handle. He has great touch with both hands, and he can make shots. Now, Jaren Jackson Jr., completely different level defensively, obviously. Also was younger entering the draft and probably a more developed shooter. But the more I sit with it, I think that the offensive upside is that he can be offensively what Jaren Jackson Jr. is. Now that's a huge bar to reach, especially
that's
because
pie in the sky.
There were people forget that there was a year where Jaren Jackson Jr. had like the greatest shooting season a big man had ever had, like in 2019 or whatever, 2020 at some point. But it's just that I think that's what it is. I think where some of the weirdness and some of the production is like I don't quite see where it comes from, but he just does it anyways. Like I still get that watching Jaren. I'm like, how did he get 21 points in this game? Like, what the fuck happened? And he's just, every time I watch Jaren, I feel like every once in a while he'll have a loud game, but he has a whole lot of like really quiet, like 25-point games. Plus, he's a defensive player of the year. Jaren Jackson Jr. is awesome, and I love him. And Asa Newell will never ever be Jaren Jackson Jr. because he does not have that level of defensive upside. But I think that's more the realm where it's like the world is he's a starting level 4 in kind of a too big system because he can really make shots and he's so efficient, and the biomechanic things translate to him being able to kind of create some for himself even from the perimeter. And even though he's a horrible passer, it doesn't matter because he's just so efficient. So I think that's I see that a little bit. Sorry, Coop, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I completely lost my train of thought. That's a really good point because Stone and I had talked about like Jaren's just so fucking good, insane development, but like you can kind of see. I think that is what is so intriguing about Asa to me. I can't quit him. I can't quit him because he's so smooth. There's some stuff there. There's skill, there's talent, there's obvious stuff. How much of it actually projects 1-to-1? How much of it is projection? We'll see. But I'll bet on him. I can't put him above Dylan Harper. As much as I want to be like the world's biggest contrarian and do it, I'm not going to do it. But I'll have him in the first round. I'll have him hanging out there. He'll be back into the first for me. Worth a swing, but I mean, there's other bets I'd rather take. Stone, take us home, buddy.
Yeah, to be completely honest, I came into watching his film like thinking I was going to be way lower than I am. Definitely not thinking I'd be the highest on him. And I don't think I'm super high on him still. Like I think I'm coming across just less of a skeptic, but I'm not super high. But I liked him way more than I thought I would because I really think volume matters when it comes to the shooting. I think that that is just holds a lot of value and can keep him on the court more so than relying on him to make these weird, funky, tough finishes. Um, Although he can do that, but I think that level of confidence and just the shot looks really good. Pure, the touch is good. I think the outcomes exist of him. I'm not betting on it. I am betting on him being, like I said, a high volume guy at a pretty decent or average clip. But I think the worlds exist for him to be a high volume guy and someone that's shooting, you know, 40+% from three. Like because you're on the court so much and getting that many reps. Like I think what better way to rep it out than on the court every single night shooting that amount of threes. I think that the finishing is very versatile. He lacks explosion with the ball in his hands, but I don't think that's going to be a role that he's in a lot. Where I don't think he can exploit mismatches, and I think that holds value. But for the most part, he's someone that is getting plays as a finisher, and I think that mitigates a lot of the passing concerns. And I think that really lifts up the versatility that he has as a finisher and the quickness he can get off the ground as a finisher without the ball in his hands. And so I think and defensively, like I said, I think there's just a multitude of ways you can put him on the court without him hurting you. I think that holds a lot of value because even though he's not going to be a necessarily a good defender at any one spot, being able to deploy him in a multitude of ways that doesn't hurt you and allows you to have lineup flexibility without a massive negative, I think holds value. I really feel strongly that he's going to be an NBA rotation player for a long period of time. And I don't know to what level. Maybe he's a sixth man, maybe he's an eighth man, maybe he's a low end starter, maybe he's a median type starter. I don't really see like any sort of star outcomes for him, but maybe he becomes the level of shooter like Jaren that gets him to 1 or 2 All-Star games because he's just that level of shooter and can finish fairly well in a multitude of ways. Like I think that world still exists for him too. I don't think he'll ever be like a top option on any sort of team, but like a third option on a team, I'm not completely ruling out. So that's where I come with Newell, and ultimately on my board I have him 7th. Out of the 11 that we talked about, I have him just above Queen, just below Edgecombe, although that one is up for debate still for me. But I really buy him as an NBA player, and that's more than I can say for a lot of the bigs that we talked about, including Maluach, because I think that the defensive downside with Maluach is far greater than any downside that exists for Newell.
I think you've convinced me. That was a really, really impassioned plea there, and I think I see the vision to move him a tier ahead of where I had him. I think you're right on a lot of those things. Just in that there are the varied pathways, even if they're not pathways I necessarily value all the same. I think the number of them is worthwhile enough. So I've been convinced. But I think that's all we got, fellas.
What a way to end it. What a good way to end it.
What's his name? The wrestling guy's name, McMahon, Vince McMahon meme, where he's crying and he's that's all I got, fellas. But no, this was awesome. I always love doing the show with you guys. Hopefully you guys are liking all the YouTube stuff and the all the work that Coop puts into that. We can't commend him enough. He's the superstar of the pod. It's crazy to think that we spent a whole year doing this, Stone, without Coop. He feels so ingrained in things. But this is a blast. I love you guys, and we appreciate you guys listening. So give us a like, rating, review, like, and subscribe, all that fun stuff. Let us know what you think of Maluach and Newell and how stupid we are for having them where we have them. Whatever you got, let us know. Comment below. This has been the Upside Swings NBA Draft Podcast. We hope we hit our ceiling. Thank you.
Okay, I'm hitting it now. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I for the second time tonight was not paying too much attention, but I'm walking in now. I'm locked in for the remainder of this episode. I'm sorry, fellas, it's late, and I'm
That's
exhausted.
getting left in. That's 100% getting left in.
God.
I hope so.
You just want him doing this so you can clip it.
Get this thumbnail, and we'll put explosions in the back.
We're gonna get the eye lasers out of Stone's eyes when he's doing this.
Classic thumbnail face. Anyways, okay.